Hey, everybody. Please welcome up to the stage writer-director Alex Ross Perry and Peter Bogdanovich.
Hello.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Peter, for coming to do this.
Well, it's my pleasure.
I hope so. You just said you had questions that you would
I
say.
have a lot of questions.
All right.
Is this your generation?
Is this my generation?
Yeah.
The characters?
Yeah.
In an ideal world, maybe. I don't think I'm really... I think Lily Rabe's character is the only character, and Jason Schwartzman are the only ones that are kind of my age. Some of the women are a little bit younger, and then there's the Adam, Chloe, Mary Louise family is older.
It seems like the story is about lack of communication. Is that right?
Very much so. And what I was really curious to try to do was, I'd made several movies in a row where the characters communicated very bluntly and very openly in hostile manners with one another. And I wanted to do something that was about the same feelings, the same sense of unrest in your emotions, but to do it without anyone speaking it, and to do a thing about lack of communication between friends, family, loved ones, which I'm just curious about and interested in. And you do a movie where no one has any phones, no one's accountable for their whereabouts, and you can narratively explain why people aren't really communicating.
Well, there seems to be a tremendous lack of communication. Isn't that what it's all about, finally?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to do it where you as the audience generally probably know exactly what a character is not saying. The character says to their spouse, "How are you doing?" "I'm doing fine." And the audience, because they've seen the previous scene, knows that they're not doing fine. They know what just happened. They know what this character's life is like prior to this scene.
Right. Was it all written, or was there some improvisation? Or?
There was no improvisation this time. I had done it a lot on my last couple of movies, and I just wanted to finally experiment with essentially saying we're doing the script. Early on, Chloe Sevigny, who plays Alyssa, said, "I'm terrified of improv, and you seem to do it in your other movies." And I said, "Well, we won't do it this time." Simple. Sounds great. And then Lily and Mary Louise both have a lot of theater in their background, and we're really eager and excited to just not be told. You're going to have to ad-lib a little bit, and just to be, said, "Here's your monologue."
Just do the script.
Yeah, let's just try it, because I'd never done that before. And I enjoyed it so much. It kind of feels like how I want to work only from now on.
You mean all your other pictures were improvised?
Not improvised, but if a scene feels like it needs a little extra ad-libbing on set, we always made room for it. And a lot of times it ended up in the film. And on this, we didn't make room for it. We just said, this is the way that it is. Because the other ones have a specific script, but some actors, like Jason Schwartzman, he loves bringing ideas. And there's maybe 2 lines here that he slipped in. But generally, on this one, I just wanted to stick only to what was written.
How long did it take you to shoot it?
15 days.
15?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Wow.
Wow, what a heartwarming gasp that was. This is, people can't be that impressed by this. This is a film festival. It's 2017. Movies have been, how long did it take? This is not a Q&A, people. If you're going to ask how long it took me to write it, I'll answer it. But
how long did it take you to write it?
Off and on, it's hard to say. I mean, a lot of the ideas were just sort of percolating. You accumulate notes and character. You come up with a character, and you don't have a movie for them necessarily. You come up with a scenario, and you don't know what characters belong to the scenario. So parts of this movie were sort of orbiting for a while. And then I think the writing of it was, a couple of months, 4 months maybe, of just saying, I'm going to start actually actively doing this, and then having a draft to send out. Which is short, but there's something exciting about the immediacy of writing something and then shooting it. Other things I've done, and they take time. And I found that just kind of impulsively doing this and then making it was kind of refreshing.
How did you cast it? How did you go about casting it?
Jason had been in my movie Listen Up, Philip that played here a few years ago. And then basically the rest of the cast, almost all of them were actors I'd met with for other movies that for one reason or another didn't happen. And you developed a real company in your films, and you start to see...
For a while.
Yeah, you start to see the same performers pop up again and again. And as an audience member, you know that that's because of a relationship of trust between them and you. And
Right.
because you know as a writer and a director that they are the voices that your script needs. And all my favorite films and filmmakers, to one extent or another, have had a version of that, I found, the more I think about it. And starting to find ways to build that myself is, I think, a big part of finding a sort of confidence in what I'm doing. So I hadn't worked with anybody in this movie except for Jason, but all the actors that I had met with for other films, I really wanted to work with, like Emily Browning and Lily and Annalie, I encountered for other reasons and was really eager to get to, and Chloe as well, to get to bring in. And, as with everything, you hope to make more movies with these people because now we just have the shorthand.
Yeah. Mary Louise?
Yeah, she was someone I had never met. And I intentionally wrote some characters for actors, for, a type of actor I'd never had a meeting with. I'd never had a role for a woman in her 50s. So I felt like I wanted to write one so that I could meet actors of that, type and hopefully get to establish some new relationships.
What directors do you like?
I like you. Your films are very important to me.
Leave me out of it.
We looked at, for this one, kind of the biggest influence was Eric Rohmer's movies, specifically some of the ones that I really love from like the 80s and 90s, kind of after most people know his best known work. We just looked at those a lot. I assume you're mostly familiar with his work.
I know his work a little bit. I wish I knew it better than I do.
Yeah.
Because I like what I've seen, but I just haven't had the time to catch up with everything.
Yeah, like some of the earlier ones maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he stayed consistently excellent in my opinion, and I think some of his films from the 80s and 90s are better than his films from the 60s. And we looked at him a lot for this and felt like that was kind of an important touchstone. For this film, but you said leave you out of it, but I can't because you're here. I don't want to because you're here, but you have this story.
Well, if you insist.
I do insist. But you have this story that I love that, you told at a previous Q&A that we had done for They All Laughed about just filming on the street in New York, and you had Audrey Hepburn just in a store waiting to be cued, cameras rolling, cue her, send her out, walk down the street, cut, pop into another store. And stories like that and, that film and that style of filmmaking is so important to me and to a lot of people I work with that, this movie, I can't even tell you how many things are basically cueing someone, no one on the street in this movie knows they're being filmed. We're just sending the actors out and having them do it.
Right.
And this is a very small movie, and some of the films that I'm talking about that inspired it are much larger. But there's still a certain spirit of just capturing a town or a city or characters functioning in the real world that feels both heightened and artificial in this film because of the music, hopefully, but also just feels real. It just feels like we're out there on the street. So I like things that kind of blend something that just feels realer than real.
It was all shot in New York, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's all Brooklyn, all my neighborhood.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Except for the scene at Anthology Film Archives.
Right.
Which represents the autobiographical nature of the film, where I only leave Brooklyn to go into the city for a movie.
How autobiographical is it?
Just that part. And that I work at home and just sort of for a couple years, especially leading up to where these characters and where the story were orbiting, I was working at home full time for the first time ever, really. And my life would just be, wake up at the desk in my house, about the same time every day. I go out to the same cafe, get the same snack, and you just begin to feel an ecosystem in a tiny little pocket of town, and you overlap with the same people. I go out to 3 o'clock at the same cafe, and you see the same guy there also taking his 3 o'clock break. And I just thought, how weird would it be if I walked in one day and that guy was there with someone who I knew, and I didn't know that he knew someone who I know, because it's a small world. And doing a movie like that felt like a fun challenge where characters orbit but they don't touch.
You seem to have purposely left out the backstory. In other words, they talk about things that happen, but you don't really pinpoint it. Am I right?
That is right. Yeah, you just allude to things. I don't like in movies where things are over explained.
Yeah.
Because, if you have a shared history with someone, you don't explain the backstory when you're having a short conversation with them. You just say, yeah, you remember he did that thing a couple years ago. You're not saying it to people who've never heard it before. And I just think that the natural flow of dialogue doesn't need that. And if people are paying attention, they'll get that extra layer.
Also, the relationships between the characters, it takes a while to figure that out.
Yeah, that was intentional. And I hope it pays off. I hope that it plays where, the sort of final piece of that is Lily, who works for Mary Louise, which I think is around minute 50 of the movie. And it's not important. It's not a surprise. It's not the final thing you need to understand. It just hasn't mattered until now. And I think doing a story where you only learn things as they matter, rather than doing the traditional thing where everything is set up in 10 minutes, and then you have no surprises for the rest of the movie, just why bother? Why not take a little bit of the back road?
But did you discuss with the actors the backstory?
Yeah, I think so. It's too bad they're not still here.
In other words, did you help them to understand what the backstory was?
Certainly, I think so. I hope none of them are recoiling, saying that would have been so helpful. I wish you had done that. But yeah, just in talking about it, you're like, just having those conversations with talent is what it's all about, and just having that time to sit before the shoot at a coffee shop with them or on set when you're waiting for something and just have that conversation.
Well, in 15 days, you don't have much time on this set.
Don't have much time, but you can make time for that. You can make time to hang out with the actors. And
15 days is tough.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy, but it's its own challenge. And that's kind of the conceit of this, is these people don't live in a lot of spaces. They go between home and one other place that defines them.
Did you shoot everything in each location, finished each location? Or
Yeah.
did you go back?
No, I would have loved to have been able to shoot it in order.
Yeah, you can't do that.
No, the movie I made before this we shot in order, which was only 12 days. If people want to gasp again, now's the time for that. We shot that one in order because it was just one location.
Yeah.
But on this, we shot each location out, and it was fun. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this where you have a big ensemble, but people sort of don't really overlap. Like, Mary Louise had wrapped and left town before Annalie started the movie. And they never interact in the movie, but it's just weird that there was even like a whole week in the middle where neither of them was working. Like, Annalie was all week 3, Mary Louise was all week 1. And then you just sort of piece together this thing, and then your job in shooting it is keeping that consistent, where you're doing a scene with 2 actors, and then it cuts to a scene with 2 other actors. And these 4 people never interact, but you have to make it feel like this is all the same thing. And you're doing them 9 days later with actors who never get to sit in a room together and discuss the tone and mood that they're bringing. So then you have to sort of monitor that extra closely in a movie where so many characters don't interact with other main characters, which is fun. I mean, that's, again, like, what's what I love about They All Laughed is that people sort of float around each other. I feel like you love an ensemble. I feel like a lot of your movies don't have 1 or 2 main characters, but 5 or 6 or 7 or more.
I like a lot of people, yeah.
Why is that?
I learned you can cut, if one story gets boring, you can cut to the other one.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, if the other story's boring too, then
you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. That's sort of where that comes from for you, though? You just feel like there's something else?
When I made my first picture, Targets, I had 2 stories, and I found it was helpful to have 2 stories. And then Picture Show, we had 10 stories, so it was even more exciting, because I like the idea of going to different people.
Yeah. And then Paper Moon just has 1, really, right?
That was different.
Yeah. But it's still nice to sort of have the feeling of bringing as many people as you can in and setting the challenge for yourself that I need to get all these performances on the same page. And I have X amount of time to do it. And if I can pull it off, then Chloe and Jason, who are never in the movie together, feel like they're in the same movie when we watch it. And to me, that's an exciting challenge. And yes, this is a very short shoot. It's very simple. It's mostly in my neighborhood, but challenges like that were exciting. And it's just fun to set challenges for yourself, project to project. And again, this is a thing of yours that I love. For years, it felt like everything you made couldn't have been more different. You're making movies almost back to back, like At Long Last Love, Saint Jack, What's Up, Doc? You're changing what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I didn't see any point in doing the same picture over and over. Some directors do that, but they asked me to do a sequel to What's Up, Doc? And I said, well, I just did the picture. Why do it again, you know?
They want the sequel right away?
Well, most sequels are just the same picture over again, don't you think?
Yeah, well, because that's the only reason that it's worth making a sequel, is because people want more of it. And Texasville is not the same movie as The Last Picture Show.
That's why it wasn't as popular. They also kept it a secret in the distribution, which didn't help.
Was that frustrating? I feel like that's still
I wanted to kill them.
It's good to know that these problems are not new, and that I shouldn't feel ashamed for experiencing them.
No, you shouldn't feel ashamed, no. Just don't kill the distributor, though.
I wouldn't go that far.
And don't sue the studio. I did that once, too.
If I would, I could, but I don't think I have that level of power.
So, what are you going to do next?
Geez, that's a tough one.
When did you finish this?
Like a week before Sundance in January.
Oh, it was shown at Sundance.
Yeah. We were working on it right up until the last minute. I wrote a movie for a studio that is shooting now. And
what's that one?
It's a movie for Disney. It's called Christopher Robin.
Oh.
And that was kind of a different experience than this. And the next challenge is just like doing a movie that is not this movie. You know, so like everything I'm trying to work on and the thing I most want to do next takes the lessons from this that I liked the most. Let's stick to the script. Let's treat the script, treat the script like a Bible. Let's really look at the words. But this movie by design is very mellow, has a very simple, consistent energy that is from the first scene to the last scene. And the next thing I want to do is, again, just as a response to this, changes the mood and the tone of the movie very often throughout the film. And exists in a world unlike this as much as possible. So as you're saying, like the challenge is just to respond to what you've done by finding something that takes what you learned and does something totally different with it.
Yeah. What's the title mean?
What does the title mean?
For you.
Well, you've said a lot that you like to take titles from songs. And I always kind of take song titles in their cadence of things that I like that don't necessarily work with the movie, but just are the proper rhythm of something, and find a way to make it part of the movie. And in the film, Lily's character on two separate occasions sort of talks about what the themes of this story feel like to me as really actualized through her character most of all, which is that she feels very emotionally sort of at loose ends, considering and thinking about the arc of relationships and dynamics. And in the span of this film, through Emily's character, you see several relationships begin. She meets several people for the first time in the first scene. She meets 3 characters for the first time. And then by the end of the film, a lot of characters have said their goodbyes for what you as a viewer may feel like is the final goodbye of their relationship. And Lily seems to be the one who's the most aware of that. And she talks about it twice in the movie. And
she doesn't say golden exits.
She doesn't say golden exits.
No. So where'd you get the title?
The title got me. You know how titles are.
No, I don't. Not in this case.
Yeah, I don't know. They just picked me.
I like the title.
Yeah, that's why it's the title of the movie.
But I don't quite get what it means.
Yeah, it picked me. Once it gets you, you can't shake it.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, once something tells you it's the title of your movie, for me, I just can't ever.
The phrase "golden exit" came to you.
Yeah.
It's not a song title.
It's not.
No.
But it's part of a musicality that I find thematically connected to the movie, and
I can see that, yeah.
it just suits the film for some reason. I don't know. It makes perfect sense to me, and this movie could never have another title, and it never will. Unless you can give me a better one
No,
before we get off stage.
I couldn't think of a better. I like the title.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know what it means exactly.
No one has to say the
I like
title
it.
more than me for years. I have to repeat this title, so it has to be something that flows off of the
Yeah.
tongue. But I like that you're thinking about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. What other directors do you like besides Romer
In general, or for this?
or me?
I mean, what I find interesting about this, and this is something that you as a writer sort of have spoken of very eloquently, is I think what matters most to people in terms of anything, film, literature, for me it just feels like it has to be something that comes from your lifetime. That's not to say you can't love and appreciate things that predate you, but I think I found that ultimately the things that matter most to me at least happened partially during my lifetime. And I've started realizing that filmmakers who were active during the years that I was alive but not watching films mean a lot more to me now than I ever thought they would. So a lot of people who did some of their best work in the 80s, like Paul Schrader and Michael Mann, have become really important to me because they filmed the world that I grew up in. And I, of course, have gone back and developed a very, I believe, comprehensive education of all eras of film. And some movies mean more to me than anything, but I just, in the last 5 or 6 years, have gotten more joy from looking at things from the world as I first knew it. Which again goes back to They All Laughed, which is 80, 81, right?
80, yeah, we shot it in 80.
Yeah,
not in 81,
so
yeah.
just anything to me that is that decade means a lot. And artists that were active at that time, that's not to say that other things can't mean a lot to me too, but I love looking at things from that time period. And even just saying the 80s and 90s Eric Romer films. Obviously I have no relationship to the culture of Parisian, life that he depicted, but just for some reason I love things from my lifetime more than other things. And the older I get, the more I want to be looking back at those sorts of films.
Things within your lifetime, so to speak.
Yeah, and again, I love, there's so many, I was mentioning backstage, the theater in New York, I was saying that's kind of like or in Jersey that, shows classics, and we go there once a month, and in the last year saw, all the classics, Dr. Strangelove, The Searchers at this beautiful place with a live organ. It's the closest thing the East Coast has to this theater, and to me that's a perfect night every month. We saw Sullivan's Travels there. We saw Postman Always Rings Twice. Going to a theater like this and seeing a classic film like that with $2 popcorn is a cherished experience.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But then, once in a while the theater shows a newer movie, like Aliens from '86, I think, and just that's fun as well. But yeah,
Sullivan's Travels is an amazing film. Isn't it?
I think that was
I just saw it recently, again.
For the what numberth time?
I've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yeah, seeing it in an antique movie palace with a 15-minute live organ performance, it was as though I'd never seen it. It was as though we had traveled in time.
Well, it's great to see movies in a big theater like this.
Yeah, that's kind of the joy of this, and you sitting and watching this here is what's really exciting.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because it's big, and you feel the audience is. It's a splendid way to see a movie.
Do you feel that something has been lost without these kind of opportunities? Do you still
Yeah.
seek out this kind of theatrical experience?
No, I don't seek it out, but it's nice when it happens.
Yeah. Do you
I
find that
think
your enjoyment of watching things is in any way changed without this, or do you get the same joy out of looking at films and images?
Well, I think the bigger the audience, the more fun it is, because you hear the reactions of the crowd and so on. Particularly my own pictures, I love a big audience, but even a picture that I have nothing to do with, I particularly enjoy seeing it with a big audience.
Yeah. What makes you feel like it's not you said you don't seek it out, but obviously many great classic films play. Is it just too much to try to set a calendar and base your life around seeing movies you've seen 20 times before?
Yeah, it's a little difficult
because
I'm so busy with trying to make some new ones.
Yeah. What's that? Let's talk about, that's worth a round of applause.
Wait a minute. I'm interviewing you.
I think this is a conversation.
But that's okay. You can interview me if you want.
But you can't mention that you're working on new ones and not
I'm
have.
doing a documentary on Buster Keaton. Than whom there is nobody funnier.
Funnier.
Funnier. He's
Funnier.
so funny. Those pictures are so funny.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
That
Have you
sounds great.
seen much of Keaton?
Yeah, years
He
ago.
predates you a bit.
He does. When I first moved to New York, Film Forum did, for a whole summer, every Monday, Keaton with live piano. And I went every week for 10 weeks and saw, every one of the features, and each one had 3 shorts before it.
Oh, great
Live
stuff.
piano the whole night, and I'd never seen.
That's a great way to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen maybe the general on video, but I'd never seen most of them, and I'd certainly never seen any in the theater, and I'd certainly never seen movies with live piano. And
Yeah, that's wonderful.
experiencing
I
them that
saw
way
a
was
lot of
great.
movies like that at the Museum of Modern Art with my father. It took me when I was 7 or 8 to see silent films because my father was considerably older than my mother, so by the time sound came in, he was 30. And so his whole childhood and young adulthood was silent movies, so he wanted me to see that. And it was a great thing for me to see silent films at a young age, because I think that's the basis of the whole art, really.
Yeah. And yeah, MoMA still does silent films with live music.
Yeah, it's great.
Let me ask you one more question. Not to interview, but this can come back to me if you so choose. But I feel like I've heard you speak in interviews about a certain detachment you feel from modern cinema, and you've sort of spoken about there being a vulgarity to it that lost you at some point. And to me, and why I wanted you to do this, and the kind of movies I like making, and this film in particular, is about respecting a time and a sort of story where there wasn't any of that, where there's just a certain level of elegance and respect for the characters and for their emotional journey. And I've heard you speak very eloquently on how when cinema lost that, you became slightly less interested in what your contemporaries were doing, because you really love emotions and the beauty of images and faces. And I'm wondering if anything, in a contemporary sense, strikes you that way, or if you see this and you ask, what are the influences? But you know that I'm hopefully coming at it from a position of just beauty and respect for what these people are going through. And, it's not vulgar, it's not crude, it's not unpleasant to sort of be in these people's world. And I'm wondering how this sort of connects to what you feel you see in modern films.
Well, it is a great plus that your picture isn't full of vulgarity and easy jokes like sperm in the hair.
Well, we cut that scene. It's a good thing
No,
we
but
did.
the reason I mention that is because there's a picture called "There's Something About Mary," where one of the big jokes is the guy gets his dick caught in his zipper.
Yeah.
And the other joke is that she has to cum in her hair. Those kind of jokes I don't like particularly.
I've heard you cite this movie and those moments as what seems to you to be the decline of American cinema.
Decadence.
Yeah.
Decadence. We're in a period of decadence, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because you're saying if you want a joke, I mean, to me, What's Up, Doc is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And if you want a joke, you want there to be a sort of cleverness to it, and you want it to feel organic to the characters and essential to the story.
Well, it's funny you mentioned What's Up, Doc, because when we were making it, Warner Brothers said to me, "Don't you want a PG or a PG-13?" And I said, "No, I want a G. I want it to be a G-rated picture with no socially redeeming value." They thought that was not funny. But the fact that it is a G-rated picture is one of the reasons it's popular still, because people can take their family to see it and so on.
Yeah, which is the same as the Buster Keaton.
Yeah,
Just
right.
the quality of images and a sort of level of decency
Yeah.
that you in the interviews I've heard, you just don't see it so much anymore. Whether
It doesn't happen that
Yeah.
too often.
And yet you
I
also-
liked your picture because you didn't indulge in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, cool, thank you. That's what I've been waiting for, that endorsement. But no, to me, it's just, and some of I love, like a film like Daisy Miller is just so understated and so elegant in its presentation of this woman's story. And even, a movie that deals with something like a guy in prostitutes with St. Jack, again, I feel it's just very beautiful and elegant and treats the character with respect. And that's what I think you always do. And if there's a main lesson that I feel myself and other people who love your films have taken, it's that you always love the characters deeply. Whether they're struggling, whether they're doing things that are a little unseemly, whether they're, spying, sleuthing, sleeping around, you love them. And that is a really important lesson, I think, for writing and for thinking about a certain kind of storytelling. And certainly this
I
isn't.
felt like you liked your characters very much as well.
Yeah, I do. I couldn't spend a year writing and shooting and editing and another year talking about them if you didn't love them, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's painful.
Have you ever felt like you got down too far down and you realized I should have put a little bit more heart into this part of the movie? This part's a little too is missing something, or?
Probably, but I can't remember exactly where. Do you feel that way?
Sometimes. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I feel like this is my 5th movie. I feel like by your 5th movie, you had essentially changed what filmmaking was. So we have a little bit of a slower learning curve nowadays.
Well, I was lucky, you know. People of your age haven't got the good fortune that I had in terms of meeting the people who invented the medium, so to speak. You know, they were still alive. John Ford, Orson Welles, Hitchcock, Fritz Lang, Alan Dwan. They were all around, and they didn't mind talking to me. You know, and so that connection to the past was visceral for me. And you guys don't have that, unfortunately.
We don't have that, but I can talk to you, which is a
talk
connection
to
to
me,
the past, which is visceral for me.
Well, that's nice.
And I think is as meaningful. Sure, I didn't get to meet those guys, but that's the same thing I was saying. Those people that were your introduction to the medium, they were around for you to meet with and converse with and learn from. And for me and many people in my generation, that's you and many others who are around for us to meet and talk with and learn from. And you've influenced a lot of great filmmakers and have, you know, been publicly very kind with your support for them and they for you.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah. And we're being given the light, and I guess that's it. So thank you for.
Are they giving us the hook?
Yeah, the light is flashing.
The light is flashing.
So.
Well, you've done a fine job.
It means so much to me to hear you say that. It's an
a
honor to have you here. I really
it's a
appreciate
challenging
it.
picture.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you so much for coming to do this, and thank you
you.
everybody
And a
for
round
coming.
of applause to Alex Ross Perry.